Now there's a comfortable way to look fine.
Stands outside Oxford Circus selling papers. Sorry, suits.
And she brought it out, and I looked at it, and I says, it's wonderful.
Fashion has always been a game of risks. Sometimes it creates timeless classics, and other times it delivers head-scratching disasters. Between the 1950s and 1990s, designers and brands went wild experimenting with bold ideas, futuristic fabrics, and too-good-to-fail accessories. But as history shows, not every daring creation was destined to shine on the runway or in everyday closets. Some were too impractical, others too strange, and a few were simply ahead of their time. From bizarre accessories to over-engineered outfits, these fashion experiments prove that not all trends are built to last. So, join us as we look at 25 innovative clothing items that failed miserably. In the late 60s, fashion got truly disposable, literally. Designers introduced paper clothing, shift dress styles made entirely from paper or paper-like material. It was meant to be cheap, fun, even futuristic, but it failed horribly. Why? First, the paper wasn't durable.
Fashion show and cocktail party held in the store's front window. The fashions are all made of paper, and they went on sale to the public the following day.
It tore, stained, sagged with moisture, and barely withstood a breeze or a drop of rain. Washing, impractical. Comfort, missing. Fashion, very short-lived. Also, as environmental awareness rose, people recoiled at the idea of one-wear throwaway garments clogging landfills. This failure teaches us that novelty without practicality dries up fast. And speaking of impractical, up next we'll unlace something rigid and tight. You wouldn't believe it actually once existed. During the space race craze, designers like Courrèges, Paco Rabanne, and others pushed boundaries, thinking vinyl, plastics, shining metals, chainmail plates, even space helmet-like headgear. There were moon boots, metallic minis, stiff, translucent materials designed to seem out of this world. But these outrageous items often failed to function. Metal dresses could weigh many kilos, making sitting, walking, or basic movement a chore.
She's practically in orbit already. I'd better keep my mouth shut. Pa would never see the point of a hairdo like this that makes you think, not of mums.
PVC/plastic shines looked jaw-dropping in magazines, but they warped, smelled, trapped heat, and were uncomfortable in indirect daylight. The moon boot novelty? It is too bulky and too weird for daily wear. People loved the futuristic ideal, but hated the real-world cost in terms of comfort and wearability. And if you thought heavy or rigid clothing was bad, wait till you see what stretchy disaster comes next. In the 1980s, spandex invaded wardrobes far beyond the gym. Bodysuits, leggings, unitards, and casual streetwear went ultra-tight and ultra-shiny. The idea is to show off curves, embrace movement, and emphasize fitness and youth. But success was short-lived. Spandex has zero forgiveness. Wrinkles, bulges, and every contour becomes visible.
Roll up, hands on your hips, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Double time frame. 1, 2, 3, 4. We warm the shins. 6.
Good for some, embarrassing for many. Also, breathability is terrible. Sweat is trapped with no escape. Paradoxically, what was designed to liberate movement ended up making wearers self-conscious. Plus, fashion moved on. Baggy, relaxed fits, layered looks became more appealing. So, in this tight craze, I was no longer daring. I was just uncomfortable and passé. Ready for the next flop? This one literally swished with every step. Think baggy nylon pants with dozens of zippers, ripstop parachute material, or matching shiny shell suits in eye-searing colors. Designed originally for breakdancers or for leisure and flash, with flashy aesthetics and loud style statements.
For guys, just $8.97 each. Then jump into these Bugle Boy parachute pants for only $19.97 each. Fashions for guys that really move at Miller's Out.
They failed because, while visually dramatic, they were wildly impractical. Parachute pants swished, squeaked, caught wind. They were hot. The synthetic fabrics didn't breathe. Zippers broke. Style looked like a costume more than daily wear. Shell suits added to the problem by being loud. literally and figuratively, and again, comfort and subtlety were lost. As the decade turned, people yearned for something more wearable, less gimmicky. Up next is something that seemed sexy but ended up very bad out of luck. This category covers items that pushed boundaries, some too far. Think shirts or dresses cut so low you see the undergarments, tops and shirts so tight they shrank into revealing shapes. Styles meant to be edgy or sexy but crossed into awkwardness. In the 1970s and 80s, visible underwear and overly snug shrink tops became trendy in some circles.
Here, it's a West End show. Sheer nylon underwear, new style elasticated girdles and brassieres, everything to delight the eyes of women.
Why did they fail? Because pushing sexy or edgy is one thing. Comfort and dignity are another. Many people felt self-conscious. Movement was inhibited. Social norms didn't always accept such exposure. Wearability was limited. You can't run errands or go to work if you keep adjusting or worrying about exposure. Also, these items aged poorly. What once seemed rebellious became embarrassing. In the early 90s, fashion went full science fair. The hypercolor line from Genera offered shirts, shorts, sweatshirts, even tights that changed color with heat, body warmth, sunlight, even your hand or armpits could make part of the garment shift shade. It sounded amazing, but it failed spectacularly. Wash it wrong, hot water, tumble dry, iron, or even sweat profusely.
New jeans West Hypercolor. Wear it to believe it.
And the thermochromic dye would degrade. After a few cycles, the magic effect faded. Or worse, it permanently turned into a dull, ugly color. People got embarrassed. Color changes in the wrong places, armpits, crotch, weren't flattering. Genera sold tens of millions of dollars in just a few months, but demand died just as fast, and they filed for bankruptcy in 1992. It shows that novelty is one thing, and durability and wearability are another entirely different thing. And speaking of wearability issues, next up, you'll see something sticky, shiny, and completely impractical that looked cool in photos but not in real life. In the 1960s, designers like Mary Quant popularized raincoats in bright, shiny PVC or coated materials, dubbed the wet look. Brands like Alligator Rainwear in Britain made PVC raincoats in vibrant colors, translucent plastics, etc.
The most exciting of all was PVC. Nobody had seen anything that looked like this PVC. And I had a whole collection in black and white and Coleman's mustard and ginger.
They looked futuristic and cute in mod photo shoots, club scenes, or for occasional rainy days. But daily life was brutal on them. The plastic/vinyl trapped heat, smelled bad, became sticky in warm weather and stiff in the cold. They didn't breathe, seams could leak, the material creaked. They were less rain protection than fashion statement, and often uncomfortable enough that people traded them in or avoided using them as real coats. Over time, preference shifted to lighter, more comfortable fabrics or lined waterproofs, reducing demand. This failure reveals that style without comfort and practicality is a house made of glass. It looks special until you try to live in it. Crimpline was a heavy, textured, continuous fiber, modified polyester/terylene, introduced in 1959 in the UK. It was wash and wear magic. It didn't need ironing, held its shape, and resisted wrinkles. Many dresses, suits, and shirts in the 60s to 70s used crimpline, but its downfall followed quickly. Crimpline is thick and heavy. It isn't breathable and traps heat. It clings awkwardly, weighing down garments. Dress swishes are muted. Fluid movement is compromised. For many wearers, what initially seemed convenient turned suffocating.
Regular and tall files are amazing for fitting your height. I highly recommend these patterns.
Also, fashion's aesthetic movements shifted toward lighter, sleeker fabrics with better drape. By the early 70s, lighter polyesters or blends, or even back to cotton linens, became more popular. The aesthetic of crimpline, flashy, stiff, synthetic, began to feel dated and ugly. So, convenience alone couldn't save it. Comfort, climate, feel, Even social perception mattered. After crimplin faded, people looked for tech clothing that worked, not just wowed on lookbooks, which brings us to the next flop, one that flaunted motion and color but ended up more embarrassing than impressive. Leg warmers started as a practical accessory for dancers, protecting calves in cold studios before classes. But by the early 1980s, they crossed over into mainstream fashion. Neon, fuzzy, chunky knit leg warmers worn with everything. Jeans, overtights, miniskirts, sometimes even in summer. They became a symbol of 80s-style excess. What killed them? Overuse and impracticality. Wearing them in warm weather? Miserable. They were bulky, hard to match unless you were going full 80s.
They're functional, fashionable, and just plain fun. They're cable knit leg warmers for dance, aerobics, or exercising.
Fashion quickly turned against anything that screamed costumey. Also, their purpose got lost. They weren't keeping anyone warm in the street, just adding awkward bulk. Eventually, the novelty wore thin, and people saw them as kitschy, overly dramatic. By the mid-80s, leg warmers were already retreating from mainstream everyday use. Even though leg warmers partially revived in retro cycles, they never regained their original omnipresence. A less well-known but spectacular failure category: clothes that tried integrating technology, sensors, lights, or reactive elements. Think full costumes with LEDs, motion sensors, light-up panels, or garments that responded to touch or movement. Some were shown in tech fashion or performance art shows in the late 80s and 90s.
Textiles. What we know is that we can build it into clothes so it is comfortable, so it's intuitive, so you don't even know it's there. When wearable tech becomes invisible, which is what we're working towards.
These designs looked amazing on stage or in photos, but were wildly impractical. Battery packs were heavy, wiring fragile. Garments became stiff. Washing them was nearly impossible. Comfort went out the window. Also, durability was terrible. LEDs would burn out or lose connections. Plus, the cost was huge. Most people couldn't afford or maintain them. For everyday wear, they were completely useless. In the 1950s, the fashion industry wanted to cater to women who desired instant curves without surgery. Enter the inflatable bra with hidden air chambers that could be pumped up through tiny valves. Advertised as a miracle invention, women could supposedly customize their bust size on the go. It sounded futuristic and empowering, but the reality was hilariously impractical. Air pockets often leaked or deflated mid-wear, leaving embarrassing lopsided shapes.
Now try this new way to accent your figure. Cross your heart, see? You're suddenly shapelier. Well, that's what this new Playtex Fashion Magic cotton bra does.
Imagine being out at dinner and suddenly hearing a hiss as your support vanished. Many also found them uncomfortable, squeaky, and unsafe if punctured. By the 1960s, they quietly disappeared, replaced by more practical padded bras. If you thought bras that deflated were embarrassing, the next entry gave women heels so sky-high and risky that even walking became a balancing act. Nothing screams 1970s disco culture like outrageous platform shoes. Towering heels stacked several inches high, often with glitter, metallic colors, or even novelty see-through soles filled with fish or flashing lights. They were meant to symbolize flamboyance, nightlife glamour, and fun. But while they turned heads on the dance floor, these shoes were a nightmare in real life.
Okay, it's time to take a closer look at my pleaser platform sandal pumps. Maybe I should call these like the Mad Max or Road Warrior kind of.
The exaggerated platforms were unstable. Twisting an ankle was almost guaranteed. People fell, stumbled, or outright injured themselves. The novelty soles cracked, lights broke, and comfort was non-existent. Platforms also clashed with practicality. Try running for a bus in them. By the 1980s, their popularity fizzled, leaving stories of sprained ankles and fashion regrets. And while platforms failed to keep people grounded, another strange invention tried to keep pants perfectly neat, but ended up being a joke. At first glance, stirrup pants looked genius. Leggings with an elastic strap that looped under the arch of the foot, keeping the fabric smooth and wrinkle-free. They became wildly popular in the 1980s, often worn with oversized sweaters, blazers, or workout gear.
2-minute special. We're going to do 2 minutes or sellout on the stirrup pants. I'm so excited these are back.
But their popularity turned into their downfall. People quickly realized the straps stretched out, slipped off, or felt annoying under shoes. Worse, fashion critics mocked them as awkward, too casual for work, too weird for going out. They also had a way of making legs look oddly shaped, especially when paired with chunky footwear. By the mid-1990s, stirrup pants had become a fashion punchline, relegated to aerobics tapes and thrift stores. But while stirrup pants stumbled out of style, another bold experiment in denim design was about to make an even bigger mess. If you lived through the 90s, you'll remember JNCO jeans, denim so wide you could practically camp inside them. Some versions had leg openings as wide as 50 inches. They became a cult symbol in rave and skater culture, associated with rebellion and streetwear freedom.
I walk on screen here, not quite JNCO jeans, but I was able to find a pair of kickwear.
But the wider they got, the more impractical they became. Walking was cumbersome. The fabric frayed from dragging on the ground, and people tripped over themselves. Schools even banned them for being unsafe. Add massive stitched logos and cartoonish pockets, and JNCOS quickly crossed from edgy to ridiculous. As the 2000s brought slimmer, sleeker cuts, JNCO jeans became a cautionary tale about how oversized fashion can swallow you up. But if JNCO jeans swallowed wearers whole, the next flop promised elegance yet ended up being one of the most uncomfortable fashion fads of its time. Popularized in the mid-20th century and worn by icons like Marilyn Monroe and Lana Turner, bullet bras were structured, pointy bras designed to create the torpedo bust silhouette. Advertisers sold them as the ultimate in feminine allure.
Today I'm going to tell you about our padded bullet bra. The 1950s was pre-breast augmentations,
shaping the body into sharp, dramatic curves. While they worked in Hollywood glam shots, real women often found them impractical and unflattering. The rigid stitching and conical cups made clothes fit awkwardly, and everyday wear felt uncomfortable, even absurd. By the late 1960s, as natural silhouettes became popular, bullet bras were ridiculed as outdated and over-engineered. Today, they only resurface in vintage lingerie collections or costume design, not daily wardrobes. And if you think pointy bras were odd, just wait. Our next set dives into fashion failures that looked like science fiction gone wrong. The 1980s were the peak of denim culture, and designers were determined to prove that jeans weren't just casual wear. This gave birth to the denim evening gown, a strange mashup of rugged workwear and red carpet fashion. Some gowns even featured rhinestones, sequins, and elaborate trains.
Just about what the fabric feels like. And I think that's why the denim dress is kind of in a category of its own this summer. This dress, as an example, is
making them heavy and uncomfortable. While they initially drew attention, critics quickly labeled them tacky and impractical. The stiffness of denim made walking, sitting, or dancing nearly impossible, and most wearers complained of chafing. Fashion icons tried to push them into the mainstream, but the gowns were quickly abandoned as a failed fashion experiment. Denim would remain beloved in its natural home, casual wear. Acid wash denim exploded in the late 80s, with its marbled, blotchy patterns created through pumice stones and bleach. It started edgy, tied to punk and glam metal scenes, then quickly hit the mainstream. Jackets, skirts, jeans, even handbags were splattered with acid wash.
This is our ultimate result. You can see here the acid wash effect on denim pen.
Initially, it screamed rebellion and youth, but its downfall came from overexposure. By 1989, it was everywhere. The rebellious aesthetic lost meaning when everyone from teens to their moms wore acid wash. Worse, the wash often weakened fabric fibers, causing clothes to fray or rip prematurely. The look also didn't age well. What once felt bold quickly became dated and tacky. As the 90s ushered in minimalism, acid wash symbolized excess. And while acid wash bled out of style, the next innovation tried to shine brighter, literally, with clothing that glowed in the dark. In the neon-fueled 1980s, glow-in-the-dark clothing hit clubs like wildfire. From t-shirts coated with phosphorescent paint to accessories charged under blacklight, these items promised to make you the star of the night. For a short while, they did. Clubs, raves, and roller discos embraced the glow.
All right, so this other one right here is that my take on the neon look. Now, this was...
But the novelty wore thin fast. First, the paint cracked, peeled, or faded after a few washes. Second, the glow effect worked best only under special lighting, meaning it looked like a regular and often cheap-looking shirt in most everyday situations. Third, health concerns arose about the chemicals used in glow paints. By the early 90s, glow fashion had been relegated to party novelties and kids' pajamas, not everyday style. If glowing clothes fizzled out, the next fashion misstep puffed up to ridiculous proportions. The 1980s are infamous for oversized shoulder pads, the ultimate symbol of corporate power dressing. Women's blazers, dresses, and even sweaters came fitted with thick foam pads to exaggerate broad, boxy shoulders. The message: strength, authority, equality in the workplace.
Look, and that's not your taste. You can remove different layers and create in size.
Initially, it worked. Pads gave women a commanding silhouette, but the trend spiraled out of control. Pads grew comically large, distorting proportions until outfits looked cartoonish. Worse, they were uncomfortable, sweaty, and impossible to tailor naturally. By the early 90s, padded shoulders looked outdated and laughable as fashion shifted to sleeker, minimalist silhouettes. Today, shoulder pads only survive in small, ironic comebacks, not as everyday attire. But if shoulder pads tried to make people look powerful, the next fashion fail attempted to make people look futuristic, and ended up looking straight out of a bad sci-fi movie. Fashion has long flirted with transparency, but the 1960s and later decades took it too literally with plastic see-through clothing. Designers like Paco Rabanne and Pierre Cardin experimented with vinyl dresses, skirts, and clear plastic boots. The idea was futuristic, space-age glamour. In the 1990s, it resurfaced with clear raincoats, handbags, and even PVC skirts.
A cape is really beautiful and stylish. Also, don't forget the chat in the bio. Let's get started.
While eye-catching on a runway, they were disastrous in real life. Plastic trapped heat and moisture, fogged up embarrassingly, and ripped easily. Comfort was non-existent, and cleaning them was nearly impossible. The social awkwardness of wearing see-through didn't help either. People weren't ready for that level of exposure. As a result, these items were dismissed as impractical costume fashion. In the late 1990s, designers experimented with holographic and iridescent fabrics, creating jackets and coats that shimmered like oil slicks or rainbow surfaces. The goal? Futuristic streetwear that stood out on runways and in club scenes. While visually striking in photos, these jackets failed in everyday life.
Great product, rainbow reflective jacket.
The reflective materials were stiff, uncomfortable, and prone to cracking with movement. They were loud and difficult to style with other pieces. Cleaning them was nearly impossible. Many faded after just a few wears. Retailers quickly realized they were a novelty, not a practical product. This failure proves that even cutting-edge fabrics can be doomed if they ignore comfort and usability. In the 1990s, some brands tried inflatable shoes or moon sand sneakers to give your feet a cushioned, floating sensation. Conceptually, it was futuristic and playful, marketed as high-tech comfort. But the reality was laughable. Air chambers deflated mid-wear, soles wore unevenly, and walking felt unnatural.
I'm so tired. How are these banned? Well, I understand why they were banned, but there should be like an exercise class that's like moon shoe exercise.
People found them uncomfortable, unsteady, and impractical for daily use. While they were fun for a short-lived novelty or photo op, sales tanked and brands abandoned the idea. The lesson? Pushing the envelope in fashion is fine, but no one will wear it for long if it sacrifices basic functionality. And speaking of sacrifices for style, the next flop literally tried to make pants wearable art. Metal studs, chains, and zippers embedded directly into denim became a punk and goth staple in the 1980s and 1990s. Some brands even experimented with exaggerated hardware placement, chains dangling mid-thigh, bolts sewn into seams, and rivets oversized for effect. While visually dramatic, these jeans failed for practical reasons.
Anywhere reproduction-wise, any pants after 1955 could use polyester thread, but before that,
hardware snagged on chairs, caused scratches, and made laundering nearly impossible. Walking, sitting, or bending often led to broken chains or tears in the fabric. What started as an edgy expression quickly became cumbersome and uncomfortable. By the late 1990s, punk-inspired hardware jeans were relegated to niche subcultures rather than mainstream fashion. And if metal-studded jeans were a hazard to daily life, wait until you hear about the next bizarre invention that tried to merge science and fashion. In the late 90s, a few avant-garde brands and clubwear designers experimented with LED-embedded t-shirts and light-up accessories, aiming to create interactive fashion. Lights could flash in patterns or respond to music.
You can see on minimum, it does not react as well. And this is on medium.
They were a spectacle at parties and raves, but failed commercially for everyday wear. The shirts were heavy due to battery packs, wires often broke, and washing them was nearly impossible. Comfort was minimal, and many people didn't want to deal with maintenance or the social awkwardness of wearing electronics on the street. This is a classic example of concept overtaking practicality. The idea of wearable chairs has fascinated designers for decades, especially during the 1980s and 1990s when experimental fashion peaked. The concept aimed to merge clothing with utility, allowing people to carry portable seating or storage structures built directly into garments.
It's rare for me to actually get upset when I'm testing a product, but I got kind of frustrated when I was trying to put this on because this strap kept falling.
Some designs featured rigid frames hidden inside coats or dresses, while others attempted backpack-like attachments that unfolded into small seats. While clever on paper, these inventions quickly revealed their flaws. They were extremely heavy, restricting movement and making walking or sitting nearly impossible. Comfort was sacrificed for novelty, and most wearers felt more like performance art models than everyday consumers. Ultimately, wearable chairs failed because they ignored practicality. Fashion may embrace bold ideas, but unless those ideas blend seamlessly with daily life, they remain little more than runway curiosities.